Hi, everyone. So thanks for tuning in today. For the very last class today, I thought I'd give you a live person instead of making you look at some slides. So finally get to see your face, or you get to see my face at least. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to quickly explain the project and then give you a short exercise, and then you'll be done for the day. So I posted in Blackboard a PDF. It's called Final Project. So on my screen right now, I'm just going to pull that open and do a share screen so that you can follow along as I give you the instructions for the final project. Okay, so what you are going to be assigned to do for the final project in this class is basically put together everything that we've learned throughout the course of the semester and use it to design a new national health system. So suppose there are some explorers that discover a new tiny island off the coast of Alaska, and this island becomes a new sovereign nation, and the president appoints you as the first secretary of the Department of Health. So for the project, it's going to be up to you to design the new healthcare system for the country. If you are a very geographically savvy person, I actually did add in a tiny little island right there. So edited photo in your instructions. Okay, so how are you going to do this? So to design the new national healthcare system, you'll have to answer 3 questions, and they're going to be the 3 questions that we talked about in chapter 15. So the first question is, how should health insurance markets work in the country? Question number 2 is, how should moral hazard be controlled, and specifically in public insurance markets? The idea is moral hazard is when people kind of overutilize healthcare resources when they have insurance, or when they have insurance, they kind of they either overutilize or they engage in behavior that makes it more necessary for them to either use healthcare, or they start using more expensive healthcare once they kind of get sick. So the reason we're thinking specifically about public insurance is because if you're designing a system for the government, then you don't really have you don't have as much control over private markets control of moral hazard as you do with public insurance markets. And then the third question is, how should healthcare provider markets be regulated? Recall, healthcare providers are the doctors. So it's kind of how the idea that you're grappling with is like, how should the government regulate the actual physicians and the hospitals and all the people who are providing the healthcare? So your project is to submit your plans for the new national health system. And for each question, you're going to have to kind of select the answer that you choose for that question amongst the options that are presented in the textbook. So if you go back to your notes, or if you go back to the textbook, there's basically a list of options for how you might answer each one of these 3 questions. What I would like you to do is I would like you to think about which option you would choose if you're actually designing a healthcare system for a country. You can also, if you come up with a new innovative way to kind of answer one of these questions that's not presented in the textbook, you're free to select that also. So either pick one of the options that is presented in the textbook and in your notes, or come up with a new innovative way to answer each one of these questions. Okay, then, I'm on the last paragraph here. Then for each question, thoroughly explain the details of the option you choose, as well as list the upsides and downsides of this particular selection. Also indicate which healthcare models around the world, if any, use the option you select. So the idea is, suppose for question 1, which asks, how should health insurance markets work? Suppose that you opt for like a universal public insurance plan. What you would need to do then is, first of all, kind of explain how that's going to work. So you need to explain that this would look like this government coming in and providing health insurance for all of the people of the country, and there would be one health insurance type they could get. It would be the public plan, and I want you to just like flesh that out and then explain the upsides of that approach. So maybe one upside would be that this prevents an adverse selection death spiral because people can't select out of the market. There's no adverse selection. And then also explain the downside. So any healthcare plan is going to have limitations to it. So explain that one of the limitations to public insurance, universal public insurance, might be high taxes, and there's other limitations. So spell out all the limitations or the downsides. And then also indicate which healthcare models around the world use the option you select. So if you selected universal, public insurance, you would say the fill in the blank, Bismarck, Beveridge, Bismarck, or American model uses this option. Okay, so what are you going to turn in terms of a deliverable? So for your final deliverable, I would like you to present your new plans, your plans for the new national healthcare system in a PowerPoint presentation, such as would be presented at a media briefing. So if you watch C-SPAN or kind of any of these news outlets, you'll see a lot of times when policymakers come up with a new proposal for something, they'll take their proposal, they'll like condense it down to some poster boards, and then put the poster boards on a pedestal, and then someone will explain it. So I have an example here in picture format. So this would be what one of your PowerPoint slides would look like. Okay, so your PowerPoint presentation, I would like to have 4 slides. The first slide should be a title slide with your name on it and the title of your health system design. So in other words, the Affordable Care Act was kind of labeled Obamacare. That was the title of the health system. So come up with a name for your design and then also put your name on the title slide. The second slide should address question 1. The third slide should address question 2. The fourth slide should address question 3. Make sure the content you include on each slide is thorough. So what that means is that you need to fully flesh out the details of the option that you're choosing, the upsides of the option, the downsides of the option, and you need to also list the other nations or the other models that use a similar approach as the one you're proposing. Okay, so after you have made your PowerPoint slides, I would like you to save them as a PDF. It's easier for me to just kind of access the files if they're saved as a PDF as opposed to a PowerPoint slide. So make the slides in PowerPoint, and then when you do the save as at the end, when you're trying to save your slides, just select the PDF option so that you're actually sending me a PDF file. Submit your PDF as your final deliverable by just emailing it to me. And the due date, which is a very strict due date and due time, is 12:30 p.m. Friday, December 11th. This is the time that the final exam for this class is scheduled in the books. So make sure it's not turned in any later than that. If you turn it in late, then you won't get credit. So in terms of how I'm going to grade this, I'm going to grade it for accuracy. So the stuff you put in your slides needs to be correct. Neatness, so make sure it's not sloppy, your grammar is checked. I'm also going to be grading for comprehensiveness of thought. So I want to make sure you've actually thought through the downsides of your proposal and it's all kind of cohesive. I'm going to grade it for design, so you don't have to be a graphic designer by any means, but make it colorful, make it pretty, and then also completeness. So if you don't list the downsides of your particular way of answering one of the questions, points will be deducted. If you don't list which models around the world use kind of your approach, you're going to be deducted. So make sure you just read through the directions again and you're completely answering all the points I've asked for. If you have any questions about this, let me know, and I'm happy to clarify things. I'll do the stop share. So one thing I'm going to do to kind of provide a little bit of a break to those of you who have been doing well in this class is I'm going to provide you an opportunity to opt out of the project if, in place of a grade for the project, you would like to substitute in the lowest score that you received on one of the exams. So for example, if you got a 70% on exam 1, and 80% on exam 2, and 100% on exam 3, then if you want to take the 70% from exam 1, which is your lowest exam score, and then just get a 70% for the final project, I will allow you to do that, and then you will no longer have to complete the project. The catch is that if you want to opt out of the final project, I need to know by this Friday morning at 8 a.m. So if you do not explicitly tell me through email that you want to opt out of the project and get the lowest and take your lowest exam score and use it as the substitute grade for your final project by 8 a.m. Friday, then I'm going to expect a final project submission for you. And if you don't turn in a final project submission, then you'll get a 0. So I need to actually be told by you by Friday morning at 8 a.m. that you want to take advantage of this opt out for the final project. Again, this is just a way to kind of reward those of you who have been like hanging with me throughout the semester and doing well on the exams, and this will give you a little bit of break and less work to do over the next week. Okay, so the exercise today is I would like you to do a quick calculation of what your class score would be if you took advantage of this opt-out. So I'm gonna take advantage of this handy whiteboard. This is the whiteboard I used for my freshman this semester, so you'll get to see it for the first time. Okay, so the way scores are graded in this class are, or is, 20% of your overall grade comes from your participation. 20% comes from exam 1. 20% comes from exam 2. 20% comes from exam 3, and then 20% comes from the final project. Okay, so what that means is for the exercise, I'm sitting on an exercise ball here, so I kind of roll back. So for today's exercise, to get your participation for today, you're going to need to calculate the weighted average score for this class. If you were to take this final project and in place of a score for the final project, you are going to weight at 20% your lowest exam score. Okay, so here is the calculation. So this is your class grade. Make sure you can see this. Okay. So to calculate your class grade, what you're going to do, this is a reminder of how to calculate a weighted score. You're going to take 0.2 times your percentage on participation. You will then add to that 0.2 times your percentage on exam 1. You will add to that 0.2 times your percentage on exam 2. You'll add to that 0.2 times your percentage on exam 3. And then to see what your class grade would be if you did this opt-out, you would take the weight for the final project, which is 0.2, and you would multiply that by your lowest exam score. So if your lowest exam score was 70%, then you'd put in a 70 here. If your lowest exam score was a 50%, you put in a 50 here. Okay, one extra kind of helpful hint when you're calculating this is how to calculate your percent on participation. I find a black marker that works. So participation is just your exercise completion. As I mentioned early on in the semester, Blackboard grades complete exercises by just putting in a 0 in the grade spot. So what you need to do to calculate your percent on participation, go back to blue marker, is you need to go into Blackboard and you need to look at the grades tab and look at the different dates for the exercises. The very first day of class, I'm just going to kind of punt that exercise because we're having some technical difficulties, so I'm not going to penalize you for not turning in an exercise that day. But so that's August 24th, I believe. So forget August 24th. It's in the grade book, but you can just disregard it. Starting with the next class, which was August 26th, I would like you to count the number of zeros that you have between August 26th up through November 23rd, which was the last class. The number of zeros is the number of classes that I have registered participation for you. Okay, so you're going to count up all the zeros that you have in that time span. You're going to add 1 to it because you're going to turn in a participation for today. And then that's going to be the numerator of your participation score. So actually, let me erase just a little bit here. Okay, so for your participation, let's spell it out for you in steps. So for participation score, the first thing you need to do is count the number of zeros from, and again, we're going to start on August 26th. So forget August 24th. That's just we're going to just drop that. From August 26th through the last class we had, which is November 23rd, you're going to add 1 to this number. The reason you're adding 1 is because there's class today, and I'm going to just assume you're going to turn in participation today. This will give you a number. Okay, what you're then going to do is take the sum of these two things and divide it by 0.21. Okay, this seems weird, but it works. So roll the ball back over here and sit on the side. Okay, so there are a total of 24 classes in this course once we drop the first day. I told you that you got 3 freebies, so if we have 24 classes, you get 3 freebies. This brings us down to 21. So this is where the 21 comes from. So what you're going to do is you're going to count the number of zeros. Suppose you've got 20 participation tallies. You're going to add 1 for today. That will give you 21. You're going to divide that by 0.21. Okay, if the quotient, if I'm remembering the right words, quotient is you divide 2 things by each other. If the quotient is greater than 100, then 100 is your participation grade. You still see this participation grade. If the quotient is less than 100, so if it spits out 90, then 90 is your participation grade. So if the quotient is greater than 100, 100 is your percent grade. If not, then you got your participation grade. So I'll do one quick example for you. I'm sorry to like spoon feed you here, but I think if I spoon feed you, I'll get fewer emails about this later in the week. So let's just suppose, that you have come to 19 classes, and let's suppose that on exam 1 you got a 70%, on exam 2 you got an 80%, and on exam 3 you got a 100%. Okay, how would you calculate your overall class score? You have 19 zeros in the grade book. You would add 1, which gives you 20. You would divide 20 by 0.21. So what you would do is you would have the weight of 20% applied to 20 over 0.21. Then you would add to that the 20% weight on your 70% score, the 20% weight on your 80 exam score, the 20% weight on your 100% exam score, and then for the final project, which is weighted at 20%, you would take the lowest of these exam scores, which is 70, put that in, then add up these things, and this would give you the number you need to turn in for the exercise. So basically, I want you to figure out what you would get if you opted out of the project. Okay, so just, again, as a reminder, what you need to do today is you need to calculate what score you get if you take advantage of this opt-out option. And then if you would like to take advantage of the opt-out option, make sure you tell me for sure by 8 a.m. this Friday so that I can record it in the gradebook. If you don't tell me and you don't turn in a project, you get a 0 for the project. And then that is all I have today. So just as a final kind of closing thought, I've enjoyed having you on class this semester. It's been a weird semester, but we made it through. So good job. Hope you all enjoy the break, and best of luck next semester.